In a move that has sent ripples across the royal landscape, King Charles III has initiated one of the most telling transitions of his reign yet. As of the 23rd of October 2025, Buckingham Palace officially confirmed that Forest Lodge, a sprawling, privately held residence in the heart of Windsor Great Park, has been entrusted to the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine, and their 3 children. While this shift is being diplomatically positioned as a practical decision to support the young royal family's privacy and duties, palace insiders and constitutional commentators see it for what it truly is: a quiet but unmistakable step toward a new royal era. The decision, announced just days after Charles returned from a medical retreat in Balmoral, has not gone unnoticed within the palace walls. More than a mere residential handover, this is being interpreted as a symbolic transfer of future reign and responsibility. Forest Lodge is not just any estate. Nestled within Windsor Great Park, a stone's throw from Adelaide Cottage and the Lambrook School, attended by George, Charlotte, and Louis, it spans nearly 40 acres of landscaped gardens, woodlands, and heritage stables. Historically reserved for royals favored by reigning monarchs, the property has long been associated with Queen Elizabeth II's most trusted inner circle. It was gifted to her cousin, the Duke of Gloucester, in the 1972, and has since served as a private haven for key family members. King Charles, whose reign has been punctuated by cautious modernizations and a relentless campaign to secure the monarchy's long-term relevance, has evidently made a defining choice. Insiders confirm the king's explicit wish for William and Catherine to establish Forest Lodge not just as a residence, but as the logistical nerve center of their public engagements, charitable foundations, and eventual transition into monarchic duties. Unlike their previous homes, Kensington Palace or Anmer Hall, Forest Lodge is said to offer both the space and the symbolism needed for such a role. Yet this serene picture is not without shadows. Queen Camilla, who had long assumed that Forest Lodge would remain within her sphere of influence, was reportedly caught off guard by the decision. According to senior courtiers speaking on condition of anonymity, Camilla had privately envisioned Forest Lodge as a potential headquarters for her growing list of personal patronages and events, especially as her own profile within the firm expanded post-coronation. But perhaps the most startling reaction has come from a familiar but divisive figure within the aristocracy: Lord Gerald Marchmont, a distant cousin of the Queen Consort and longtime fixture within the royal social set. Marchmont, whose family has deep roots in Windsor's ceremonial traditions, has emerged as a vocal critic of the move, calling it a premature coronation in all but name. Forest Lodge is more than just a residence, Marchmont declared at a recent event hosted by the Royal Windsor Society. It is a living symbol of who holds the Queen's trust. To hand it off now, while His Majesty is still reigning, invites unnecessary confusion and destabilizes centuries of tradition. Supporters of William, however, see it differently. This is exactly what the monarchy needs right now, says Lady Eleanor Street. James, royal biographer and close friend of the late Queen Elizabeth II, Forest Lodge under William and Catherine becomes a beacon for the future, modern, family-focused, and rooted in a sense of service. It echoes everything Her Majesty stood for. What makes this move especially resonant is its timing. October marks not only the anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's passing, but also the public return of Catherine following her highly publicized cancer battle. Her re-emergence has galvanized public support, with approval ratings for the Princess of Wales soaring. The image of Catherine, poised and radiant, returning to public life from Forest Lodge, is as much a personal victory as it is a public message. And while King Charles has refrained from commenting publicly, palace insiders say the gesture is deliberate. This is His Majesty, placing the crown's future in safe hands, one aide said. Forest Lodge is the signal, subtle, strategic, and utterly royal. While the public face of this transition was calm and ceremonial, inside the gilded halls of Windsor, Buckingham, and Clarence House, tension simmered. The seemingly serene video tour by King Charles was, according to palace insiders, anything but universally supported. Queen Camilla, who has long been navigating the tightrope of royal acceptance, was reportedly blindsided by the timing and symbolism of the move. She saw it as a direct threat, one senior courtier confided anonymously. Forest Lodge wasn't just a home, it was a statement, and in Camilla's eyes, it was a crown being handed down prematurely. Camilla's reaction, though kept behind closed doors, was reportedly sharp. Sources close to the Queen claimed she viewed the relocation as an erosion of her influence, not just within the royal household but within the public consciousness. Since her marriage to Charles in 2005, Camilla has battled to secure her place as Queen Consort, often in the shadow of Diana's enduring legacy and the public's mixed sentiment. Now, With Charles subtly stepping back and shining the spotlight on William and Catherine, Camilla allegedly fears a return to the sidelines. Her whispered objection to aides that the move was insensitive to the Queen's memory raised eyebrows. Was she referring to Elizabeth II or to Diana, whose memory looms large in any conversation about William and Catherine? But perhaps the most pointed critique came in the form of a private letter sent to Lord Marcham, a senior peer in the House of Lords, known for his ties to royal ceremonial protocol. In it, Camilla reportedly questioned the wisdom of giving such a significant property to William before the monarchy had formally confirmed the line of regency in legal terms. Lord Sebastian Marcham, the 8-year-old Earl of Norchester and a lifelong ally of the late Queen Elizabeth, has long been known as the monarchy's gatekeeper of tradition. A former Privy Council secretary and an influential figure in the Royal Collection Trust, Marcham is both respected and feared in court circles. Marcham has often been the voice of caution, reminding younger royals of the importance of optics, protocol, and legacy. His reaction to the Forest Lodge decision? Thin-lipped disapproval. He has not spoken publicly, but according to reports in the Times, he has expressed concern in private letters to other peers about the speed at which the present sovereign appears willing to unfasten the bolts of the house. His opposition is not ideological. He has long supported William, but strategic. Marcham reportedly fears that such a visible gesture of succession could trigger instability, particularly at a time when Charles's health remains a subject of quiet speculation. The root of the controversy lies in what Forest Lodge represents. Situated deep within Windsor Great Park, the estate is not just a house, it is a private gem. With 8 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, sweeping lawns, tennis courts, and its own internal chapel, Forest Lodge has long served as a retreat for senior royals. Though publicly associated with Charles since the early 1992s, the property's historical origins trace back to the reign of George III. Initially known as Boothton House, it was later renamed during renovations in the 1932s and became known for hosting quiet retreats for King George VI and the then Princess Elizabeth. When Elizabeth II inherited the property in 1952, she did not reside there permanently, but often spent spring weekends on the grounds during her earlier reign. In the 1972s, it was renovated again, this time with input from Prince Philip, who considered it an ideal spot for privacy and equestrian pursuits. Charles received it as a private royal asset in the 1982s. For years, it remained a lesser-known jewel, a personal sanctuary rather than a political statement. Until now, Camilla's inner circle reportedly feels that the transfer of Forest Lodge disrespects the Queen's original intent, that the property serves as a private, neutral space away from the public theater of monarchy. By positioning it as a future operational base for a new generation, some say it repurposes a legacy asset into a political flag. What cuts deeper, according to one palace aide, is that William and Catherine's expanding influence comes with a dose of emotional power. The imagery of a young, relatable family rebuilding in the wake of personal health battles and royal duty. It's not just about succession, the aide said. It's about emotional dominance. And that's a battlefield Camilla cannot win. Still, not everyone is against the move. Supporters argue that the monarchy must evolve, and Forest Lodge is a logical and symbolic space from which to begin that transition. While Forest Lodge is undoubtedly a statement of royal transition, its significance runs deeper than bricks and acreage. It is a nursery for the next generation of monarchy. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis may still be children to the public eye, but within the ivy-covered walls of this Georgian mansion, subtle yet profound preparations are underway. The move from Adelaide Cottage to Forest Lodge is not merely spatial, it is strategic. Forest Lodge, with its 8 bedrooms, expansive gardens, tennis court, and private educational spaces, provides far more than comfort. According to palace sources, multiple rooms have been restructured as development zones. Areas designed not just for study, but for character shaping, diplomacy simulations, speech training, and even physical preparedness. While no official royal curriculum has been announced, insiders suggest William and Catherine have consulted with former Queen Elizabeth's private advisors to ensure their children are raised with the crown in their marrow. Now, Prince George, now 12, has already begun attending curated history seminars taught by senior royal historians, while Princess Charlotte is said to be shadowing her mother on select, closed-door charity briefings. Prince Louis, still a bundle of youthful energy, is being nurtured with an emphasis on emotional intelligence, an element Catherine, given her background in psychology and child development, considers vital for the modern royal figure. In a deliberate break from old traditions, the children's education at Forest Lodge blends classic constitutional history with real-world applications. Instead of rote memorization of monarchical lineages, George is reportedly learning how to interpret public sentiment through polling, data, and media narratives. Charlotte has taken an interest in early childhood diplomacy initiatives, echoing her mother's public commitments. All 3 children are still enrolled at Lambrook School, located just minutes away. However, their daily life now includes weekly etiquette dinners with visiting diplomats, readings from Queen Victoria's journals, and even gardening sessions inspired by King Charles's lifelong environmentalism. Forest Lodge is no longer just a home, it is a living academy of legacy. The decision to avoid live-in staff for the children's upbringing is revolutionary in royal circles. The Walesies have opted for rotating, part-time household aides who maintain distance and discretion. The aim is clear: to foster a strong sense of self-sufficiency. As a senior royal biographer noted in The Times, this isn't about preparing heirs to inherit castles. This is about preparing leaders for an era of collapsing trust in institutions. Forest Lodge is intentionally less theatrical than Kensington or Buckingham Palace. No footmen in white gloves, no cavernous halls, just a house, albeit a grand one, where future kings and queens live close to the ground. This approachable royalty strategy echoes Queen Elizabeth's earlier ethos of stoic dignity, but with William and Catherine's modern polish. This Windsor transformation carries echoes of deep emotional weight for the family. Catherine's battle with cancer in 2024 changed everything. Her video address in September 2024, filmed in the gardens of Adelaide Cottage, revealed her intimate connection to nature and her desire to find spaces that heal. Forest Lodge fulfills that vision: lush, secluded, but not isolating. A property where the children can bike through 5,000 acres of parkland, chase butterflies, rehearse royal protocol, and still return for bedtime stories. For William, who lost his mother Diana at 15, this home is also a shield against the public frenzy that destroyed parts of his youth. According to a former Kensington aide, this move is William's way of saying, "My children will not be hunted." Security around Forest Lodge has been quietly upgraded, and public access is now tightly monitored, but with minimal visual cues to avoid a fortress-like atmosphere. The question echoing throughout royal circles is no longer whether Prince William is ready to lead, it's whether his children are being prepared for a world that might reject royalty altogether. In that context, Forest Lodge becomes not a reward, but a proving ground, an estate not of escape, but of engagement. This generation of Windsors is being shaped not to embody entitlement, but to earn respect. With George on track to take on more public-facing roles by 15, and Charlotte's quiet confidence winning admiration from even seasoned courtiers, the future crown appears not just intact but quietly evolving under the watchful oaks of Windsor. But not everyone is cheering from the sidelines. In Part 4, we dive deep into the growing discontent simmering behind palace curtains, especially from Camilla and one shadowy figure from the old aristocracy who believes Forest Lodge's handover was a disgraceful break from sacred tradition. Stay tuned. The warm acceptance of William, Catherine, and their children into Forest Lodge may have delighted royalists, but it has stirred quiet fury behind the palace walls. And nowhere is this more palpable than in the drawing rooms of Queen Camilla's closest circle. For while the public celebrated the Windsor reset as a symbol of royal modernization, Camilla saw something else entirely: erasure. According to sources close to Clarence House, Queen Camilla was not consulted ahead of the Forest Lodge transfer, a break in royal protocol that she reportedly took as a personal slight. Historically, such large-scale asset decisions within the royal estates are made after a consensus among senior royals. But King Charles, known for his decisive streak when cornered, bypassed the traditional consultation process and sealed the handover to William with immediate effect. Camilla, who once had quiet hopes of turning Forest Lodge into a sanctuary for royal patronage events, viewed the transfer as not only a loss of influence, but a deeply symbolic rebuke. Insiders report a heated exchange between her and Charles on the evening of October 18th, where she allegedly accused her husband of erasing the Queen Consort's footprint from Windsor. Even more explosive, however, was a private remark she made the following morning during a closed-door breakfast with select allies. "If I had been William's real mother, he wouldn't dare push me out this way." That single comment sent shockwaves through royal courtiers, not merely because it touched the nerve of William's orphaned youth, but because it implicitly insulted two of the most beloved royal women, Princess Diana and Queen Elizabeth II. William was raised by his grandmother, following the tragic death of Diana in 1997. Elizabeth did more than simply shelter him from the glare of the cameras. She shaped his worldview, values, and temperament. From private breakfasts at Balmoral to formal lessons in royal history and public duty, Elizabeth's influence runs deep through William's leadership style. Thus, Camilla's remark wasn't just tone-deaf, it was incendiary. Several palace staffers reportedly walked out of the room in discomfort. One senior aide anonymously described the moment as an irreparable crack in the Queen Consort's credibility. Adding fuel to the fire is the unlikely emergence of Lord Cedric Pembroke, the 15th Earl of Yarborough, a veteran aristocrat and long-standing critic of the Windsor Reset. Known for his unapologetic defense of traditional royal hierarchy, Lord Pembroke issued a rare statement to the Telegraph, branding the Forest Lodge transfer as an insult to centuries of estate sanctity. Forest Lodge belongs to the cultural spine of Windsor, he wrote. To reallocate it without council consultation, and worse to privatize its use by modern royals pushing a populist agenda, is to rip the crown from its ancestral root. Pembroke's comments, though dismissed by younger royalists, have found traction among older peers in the House of Lords and certain European noble circles. A whisper campaign has begun, hinting at a widening rift between the modernist camp led by William and the traditionalists, clinging to Camilla's matronage. Though publicly maintaining her composure, Camilla has begun to reassert her influence in subtle ways. Her upcoming charity gala, previously scheduled at Clarence House, has been relocated to a lesser-known estate with historical ties to the Spencer family, an unmistakable jab at Diana's legacy. Meanwhile, rumors swirl of her lobbying for the reallocation of other royal properties to her children from her previous marriage, a move that would undoubtedly escalate tensions. Some within the palace have already begun referring to this emerging divide as the Second Soft War, a quiet conflict not waged with scandal or interviews, but through territory, titles, and legacy. Yet, amidst this brewing aristocratic tempest, William remains focused. Part 5 will explore how he, backed by Catherine's diplomacy and the quiet strength of his late grandmother's teachings, is navigating these internal tremors and shaping a future that may well redefine the crown for generations to come. Stay with us. As news of the Forest Lodge handover echoed beyond Windsor's ivy-clad walls, it ignited reactions far and wide, not only within the gilded corridors of Buckingham Palace, but across the aristocracy, press rooms, and loyal subjects who viewed every royal move as a signal of seismic change. The first wave of dissent came not from distant detractors or media critics, but from within the palace gates, and from someone whose shadow had loomed larger than expected, Queen Camilla. Though publicly silent, her inner circle wasted no time in briefing select royal correspondents. According to one trusted Daily Telegraph insider, Camilla was deeply blindsided by the symbolic handover, viewing it not as an act of benevolence but as a quiet displacement. Behind the scenes, sources painted a picture of tension. Since her marriage to Charles, Camilla had gradually consolidated influence, redecorating Clarence House, inserting loyalists into senior staff roles, and reshaping her public image. To her, Forest Lodge was more than a residence. It was a power base, a place she had used discreetly for private gatherings, charitable planning, and informal networking among the landed elite. Losing it meant losing a foothold. But Camilla wasn't the only figure rattled by the king's gesture. Enter Lord Hugo Cholmondeley, a prominent peer with deep ancestral ties to Windsor and a known traditionalist. Long associated with the King's Council of Advisors, Hugo had for years advocated a monarchy rooted in hierarchy, lineage, and the slow transfer of power. The idea of a future king operating semi-independently from Forest Lodge, bypassing the ceremonial weight of Buckingham Palace, was anathema to him. "It is not the Windsor way," Hugo was quoted in a private conversation overheard at White's Club in London. "The House of Windsor is built on continuity, not disruption dressed as modernity." The press, ever eager for division, ran with the headline, "King versus Queen. Is Charles sidestepping Camilla in favor of William and Kate?" The tabloids, especially, leaned into the narrative of a split royal court, Charles and William on one side, Camilla and Hugo on the other. The drama unfolded just weeks ahead of the annual Sandringham Christmas, gathering a royal tradition steeped in formality and political nuance. There, insiders whispered, Camilla would make a last-ditch appeal to Charles in private, urging him to reconsider William's growing authority. It was a confrontation that many staffers, especially those loyal to Catherine, feared would ignite further public scrutiny. At the heart of it all was Forest Lodge itself, now not just a residence but a battlefield of symbolism. Situated on 55 acres of prime royal parkland, the lodge's significance went beyond its Georgian architecture or multi-million-pound value. It had become a marker of who held the king's confidence. Observers couldn't help but recall the last time such a handover sent shockwaves through the palace. Queen Victoria's controversial bequeathing of Osborne House to her son Bertie, bypassing other children. That, too, had sparked years of resentment. Yet for William and Catherine, the move was less about power games and more about preparing the ground for a soft ascension, a transition that would be palatable to a modern Britain, wary of royal excess, but still clinging to tradition. In private, William reportedly told a friend, "We're not taking over, we're stepping up. Not to dethrone, but to serve." Such words did little to soothe the sting felt by Camilla's allies. Rumors of strategic briefings, cold shoulders at Windsor luncheons, and last-minute reshuffles in the Lord Chamberlain's office only reinforced the perception of a silent civil war. Meanwhile, Charles remained largely absent from the media, making only one brief public appearance at a veterans' commemoration ceremony, where his frailty did not go unnoticed. His silence, whether intentional or medically advised, allowed speculation to flourish unchecked. And so the kingdom waited, not for the next public engagement, not for the next charity ribbon cutting, but for a sign, any sign of whether this handover of bricks and mortar would be followed by something far weightier, a handover of the crown itself. In the final week of September 2025, as summer slipped quietly into autumn, a singular image flashed across global media platforms. Princess Catherine, standing alone at the gates of Forest Lodge, dressed not in formal royal attire, but in a simple beige coat, flanked by her children, and holding a box of personal letters. It was, unmistakably, a symbolic arrival. This quiet yet potent gesture was not announced in royal schedules nor accompanied by a press release. And yet, its impact echoed louder than any televised address. Royal watchers immediately drew parallels to Queen Elizabeth's unannounced return to Windsor after her father's death, or Diana's strategic media moves that reframed royal narratives forever. But this was uniquely Catherine-controlled, composed, intentional. Within hours, Number Windsor shift trended worldwide. Forest Lodge, a Grade 2 listed Georgian estate tucked within Windsor Great Park, had officially been renovated and fitted for the Wales family. The last of the private contractors had left only days before, and the marble fireplaces once lit for monarchs past were lit again, this time for a future queen consort and the heirs in waiting. Behind the scenes, Charles had finalized his informal delegation of duties in early September. Though not abdicating a word still taboo within the royal lexicon, his actions signaled a constitutional sidestep. William would preside over key events in the coming Christmas and New Year's cycle, including a rumored diplomatic summit involving Commonwealth leaders, a role traditionally reserved for the sovereign. "Charles isn't stepping back, he's stepping aside," one former courtier remarked, "and he's doing it while keeping his crown on the table." Inside Buckingham Palace, Camilla's final resistance took form in a closed-door meeting with her inner circle. Those closest to her describe a desperate but futile attempt to reposition herself publicly, including a proposed Vanity Fair cover spread and a televised reflection interview. Both were quietly blocked by the royal press office. By late October, Camilla had retreated from public events, citing fatigue, but insiders whispered that her absence was less about health and more about heartbreak. Her son, Tom Parker Bowles, whose financial irregularities had previously triggered alarm, was rumored to be the reason King Charles firmly closed off her influence. Lord Hugo, once a thunderous voice in defense of traditional succession, gave a final interview to The Telegraph before departing for retirement in Scotland. "We have fought for crowns, but we forget who the people trust. And they trust her, Catherine." Perhaps the most telling shift came not through speech, but formation. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson, the ever-present figure behind both Charles and Catherine, was formally reassigned from the King's personal security detail to lead protection for the Princess of Wales. The memo, dated October 12th, was leaked and confirmed by the Times. This reallocation, while bureaucratic on paper, carried deep meaning. The physical and symbolic protection of the monarchy had moved to Windsor, a throne not yet vacated, but already shadowed by the figures who would next occupy it. The Queen's Guard itself, often stationed at Buckingham and St. James's, would begin rotational presence at Forest Lodge. For the first time in royal history, salutes were practiced in private at Windsor, not Westminster. Polls conducted by YouGov in mid-October painted a decisive picture. Over 76% of respondents across the UK expressed approval for William and Catherine to assume more official duties. Among younger voters, 83% said they would be more interested in royal affairs under their leadership. News outlets, from BBC to The Guardian, framed the handover not as a crisis, but as an organic evolution. Even tabloids traditionally skeptical of Catherine now hailed her as the steady hand Britain needs. There are whispers that a new consort crown is in the early stages of design, not for an immediate coronation, but as preparation. Crafted from recycled gold and ethically sourced gems, the piece would reflect not grandeur, but sustainability, another nod to the values Catherine champions. As November draws near, Preparations for the Remembrance Day ceremonies are underway. For the first time, William will lead the wreath-laying, with Catherine standing beside him, not behind. This is not the thunderous clash of crowns. It is the soft, deliberate footsteps of a new reign walking across familiar stones. Will Charles address the nation once more before Christmas? Will Camilla resurface with her own narrative? Or will we soon see a coronation not of urgency, but of quiet inevitability? Stay with us as we follow the shifting winds of monarchy, from marble corridors to midnight gardens. A new chapter begins, and this time, it's being written by a woman who speaks little, but moves everything.